Videos on the image of perfection. Many people want to present the image like they're perfect. I blow that out of the water. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I'm not a mind reader. I'm very good at reading body language and vocal tones. I'm very good at reading situations. These are all because of experience, not assumptions. Now, getting past people's assumptions and opinions is where my issues truly lie. As far as Dan goes, him just assuming was the biggest issue that we had. Most of these people went out of their way to do what it is that sends me into panic attacks. And then, when I'm having a panic attack, that's when they want to give me attention and talk over me. That's negative attention. When somebody has a severe issue, like what I'm going through, the right thing to do is to find out what's going on. Not to treat them badly because they're reacting to the abuse. Find out what the abuse truly is. We want to present this image of perfection. The Klang family, for example. Yeah, look at their Facebook. These are people who used to be friends of mine, by the way. And they got pictures of their family, pictures of the baby, pictures of the fun stuff they get to go do together. Going on vacation to Hawaii and to California and all sorts of places. They went on 3 or 4 vacations last year. But in reality, their situation is not perfect. And we want to point out the imperfections in everyone else's life. Like they're not perfect. It's their fault because they're not perfect. But none of us are perfect. I was punished for the imperfections of others. Other people's unwillingness to tell the truth. Other people's unwillingness to even believe for a moment that they could have done anything wrong. Now, if you guys have learned anything about autism, if you guys have watched any of those videos from others that I've been trying to ask you to look at, like Anna Moomin, Annamoomin, she explains it the same things that I'm explaining. However, she has support that I don't have. She has a boyfriend who helps her. When she's been in extreme situations, her father took her in. My dad didn't take me in until over a year after Natalie had disappeared. He didn't even talk to me until a year after Natalie had disappeared. He had known the whole time that she was dead, that I was going through hell, but he turned a blind eye to it. My whole family did. They didn't care. But also, I have a history of honesty. Most people don't run away until I'm honest. They hate that. Now, Shannon Alvarado, I understand her fears. She wants to present that image of perfection. And Rick McCormick, he wants to present that image of perfection. Like he could never do anything wrong. Like I'm a terrible person. But am I really? Now, while I was there at Shannon's, much of the issue stems from her alcoholism. The way that she acts because she's an alcoholic shuts me down. It also prevents her from keeping her word. Out of the whole time that I was there, I was able to get her to help just a little bit, but she was so busy talking over me, so busy with her own opinions, and in a drunken state, might I add. People who are alcoholics, they don't hear what other people are saying when they're drinking. They only hear what they're thinking, their own opinions. Now, this doesn't make her a bad person. It doesn't make Rick a bad person. Matter of fact, I stick up for Rick and the way that he acts, even though it's very childish, for the simple reason of I am going through the same shit. People needed to come forward. They needed to actually help, actually write a report. If people from other counties can do it, how can they not? If people from other states, that Kara Johnson or Kara Miles lady was in Texas when her slander was used to prevent me from getting a PR bond. Meanwhile, the officers in Longmont who went out of their way to protect the wrongdoing of other officers, well, that needed to be documented. That needed to be recorded. But that phone call with Amanda Jonas, where she claims that I was able to make a report, no, I wasn't. I wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed the time. I wasn't allowed the evidence. They stole the evidence so that I didn't have access to it, so that I couldn't show what's going on. As far as going in to show support for me, to actually take a look at the evidence, nobody did. And I have difficulties actually being able to show them, because if I try to post that stuff up on Facebook, well, it gets me in trouble. It gets me put on Facebook bans, which is further frustration, because that's further inability to communicate with the people I need to communicate with. Meanwhile, the police have outright refused at every juncture to take a look at that. I needed someone to go in with me. Now, I was able to get Graham to go in with me after months and months of the public pretenders not taking a look at anything, outright refusing, setting up appointments that they didn't go to, didn't show up for, but didn't tell me about, didn't bother to let me know that they couldn't show up, or wouldn't show up, rather. I took Graham in with me so that he could verify what these people were pulling. And they told me that Graham couldn't go in with me. Graham couldn't take a look at the evidence. They can slander my name in public. They can slander my name on the news. But they can't allow a witness in there. By that point, I didn't trust those public pretenders because they weren't doing their jobs. They weren't even showing up. And every time they didn't show up, it cost me money. But that's my fault, somehow. No, I'm jumping through their hoops for them not to do what it is that they said that they would. With Shannon, when I bring up her alcoholism and the noise, with the alcoholism, she wants to sidestep it. With her arguing with her boyfriend, she wants to sidestep it. Meanwhile, that's the stuff that's shutting me down. And when I bring up the noise, she blames it on her daughter. Her daughter's not the issue either. Her daughter reacts the same way that I do to that situation. Well, actually, she reacts very differently. I shut down. I get quiet because I don't want to take any abuse for it. If I speak up, I'm going to get snapped at. If I even hint that Shannon might be an alcoholic, then I'm a bad person and must get snapped at. Now, her drinking was something that I brought up almost nightly. The fact that she drinks every night. Every time that she was asking me to do the counters, I would ask her, hey, could you find a night to stay sober? The 2 times that she snapped at me were times that I had pushed the issue of her sobriety. She doesn't want me bringing that up in public. The problem is that everything that was done to me, well, these people did terrible things in private. They grouped up together to slander my name and bash my name and have people that haven't looked at any of the evidence bash me and harass me nonstop. And I'm not allowed to speak out, even though this punishment continues. The punishment by the courts, the punishment by the police. And even the punishment by Shannon. Now, is Shannon punishing me intentionally? Well, that depends on how you look at it. I mean, on the one hand, she doesn't want to admit that she's an alcoholic or that that could have had anything to do with me shutting down. But also, Lana and Amanda, they don't want to admit that the things that they were doing, not they, Lana in specific. They don't want to admit that those things shut me down. Now, Lana, she was able to take a little bit of time when I first got there, one-on-one. But I didn't have sex with her, and that rejection made her a very, very mean person to me while I was there. But I was trapped there. We were miles out in the country. And although I didn't yell at them not even once while I was there, I did get hyper excited about the fact that every time that I tried to explain what's going on, just like with Shannon, I'd get interrupted mid-sentence. But Lana was much meaner about it. See, Shannon's drunk and just wants to keep on rambling, whereas Lana just wanted to be mean. Now, while I was at Lana's, it was actually a pretty decent situation. I had a room of my own. She wasn't screaming the whole day. As long as I ignored her, she wasn't snapping at me. Amanda came in once in a great while to come and talk to me and tell me that she was doing things that it turned out in the end that she hadn't actually done. They hadn't actually sent in that paperwork. Now, all the while, I needed money. I needed the money to be able to take care of myself, first of all. Second of all, I needed the money to actually have this stuff sent through the mail. All of these hospital records cost money. And I had to have an address to have it sent to. And that's what I thought we were doing up there in Montana, is setting it up to get my medical records sent to Lana and Amanda's. But it turned out that she never sent those out. And then she wants to pretend that us making photocopies of it and putting it on a flash drive is the same as getting my medical records sent to me. No, it didn't. Plus, with Lana, as soon as I left there, now, Amanda, in the texting that she was doing on that YouTube video, she was saying, oh, we're never going to help you again. No, they already let me know that they weren't going to help me when I was on the bus out of Montana. When I was on the bus to go down to court. And Amanda also wanted to tear me down because she didn't want to recognize or admit that I was leaving there to go to court in Larimer County. That's the reason in specific that I was on that bus and leaving. And there was a bunch of stuff that they wanted me to do that was pending court. I could not do those things without knowing what was going to go on in court, without knowing the outcome of my court date. But they wanted me to do these things on my own, without a vehicle. And that's a complicated thing to explain to y'all, is that I was miles out in the country. I'm trapped with a woman who is basically snapping at me whenever I speak because she feels rejected. And her daughter. And these people want to pretend like they're in the same situation as me. No, they have a roof over their head. They're allowed to snap at me. I'm not allowed to snap back. Just like my dad. He's allowed to scream at the top of his lungs at me, and I'm not allowed to scream at him back. Or I'm a bad person. That's why I was quiet at my dad's. And he's telling me, there was 11 days there where everything was just fine. No, it wasn't fine, Dad. You'd already snapped at me, yelled at me, and belittled me enough that, for 11 days, I wasn't allowed to speak. I was afraid to say anything, because if I did, I would get snapped at and treated like I'm a terrible person. For wanting him, my own father, to, for once in his life, listen to what's going on and take a look at the evidence. When I called him from Shannon Alvarado's house in California, I didn't want to stay at Shannon's. I mean, after the first week of being there and her screaming and getting drunk every night, I realized what a fucked up situation I had gotten myself into. And yes, I got myself into that. But Shannon didn't bother telling me that she was an alcoholic. Now, I did believe when I went there that there was a very good possibility that she was on meth because of her inability to listen. When I realized that it was alcoholism, I was actually relieved. But the fact is, I'm not saying that these are bad people. I'm explaining that these are the situations that make it so that I can't function. I can't turn off autism just because you want me to. I'm not allowed to react the way that Rick reacted, or I'm a bad person, but he's justified. I'm not allowed to show the evidence of all of the threats and harassment against me. Yet these other people are allowed to put slander into the courtroom to prevent me from even being able to speak on my own behalf. And I needed someone to speak up for me. Someone who was not tagged with mentally ill. Somebody who was not homeless. I needed them not to do it on the internet, but to the courts, to the police. With Miss Peaches, we tried to get it set up so that she could go in with me, to go speak to the police, to force them. Because she doesn't have the mentally ill tag. She has a roof. She has a family. And more importantly than all of that, she's female. The problem is the police made every excuse not to. Because of the way that I was painted, people went at me with a vengeance. With the police unwilling to look at it, basically these people can do whatever the fuck they want. And the fact that the police were involved from day one. At first, they were involved in not listening, telling me to man up, refusing to do their jobs. And then Natalie died. And they were invested very heavily then in trying to cover up their own wrongdoing and the wrongdoing of their fellow officers. This image of perfection, that the police are perfect, they could never do anything wrong. My frustration is at the fact that, yeah, people wanted to turn a blind eye when they could have made a difference. And I was trying to let them know, hey, there is a time limit on all of this. There is a time limit on that evidence. There is so much evidence that is no longer admissible in court because the public pretenders wouldn't do their jobs, because people wouldn't go in with me to the courts. People who were informed on the situation. Graham didn't become informed on the situation at any point. He went in with me twice to the courtroom. Steve was not informed on the situation. He didn't have the time. He went in with me twice to the Larimer courts. Graham went in with me once to go talk to my public pretender when the public pretender didn't show up. Now, these people could make time, but their families are their excuse not to. And it is an excuse at this point, because if you can't make the time in over a year, you're not going to make the time. You're just going to make more excuses, the same excuses over and over. Their excuses are their family. I can't because my family. Well, I don't have a family. My family would not help me no matter what. And most of that is because I spoke out. I spoke out about my mother's cocaine habit. I spoke out about my dad's prison. There's a reason for that. My mother, when I left her house at 16 years old, I left her house for a reason. Doug Cowden, that young woman here, Rayanne Ingersoll, who I had asked for help way back when I was at Candace's in January of last year. Doug Cowden molested her. Now, he wouldn't have had the opportunity or the chance to molest her if my mother had called in about that cocaine in Chapel, Nebraska. Now, Rayanne, when I asked her if she could help out Miss Shelley because of that pocket dial and because of the way that the police reacted, Officer Michael Beard, I was scared for Miss Shelley. Same as I was scared for Miss Alicia at my grandmother's funeral with the things that her father was pulling. See, they were trying to pull a bunch of tricks to try to get it so that only one side got shown. That's the thing about him typing at me. And then when I would reply to it, he would delete what he had typed. And I took screenshots of that, but was unable to get anyone to go in with me to force the police to take a look. They used the mentally ill tag to prevent that. Sheriff Scott DaCosta, instead of taking a look at what was going on, he automatically assumed, because of what Graham said walking out of that building, Graham, who doesn't know shit about the situation and isn't paying attention to any of the situation, he's happy-go-lucky in Jesus' name. What a fucking moron. Jesus isn't the one providing him with a roof. Tabby is. In Jesus' name, apparently. So now Tabby, because she's going out with somebody who's religious, she's into the Jesus more. But she gets to see her friends. She gets to see her family. She gets to have that familiarity and that stability every day. I don't have that. When I went to Shannon's, she was a complete stranger. And that complete stranger invited me into her house. And that is very kind of her. But she was trying to say that we had been friends for a whole year by that point. We hadn't been. I didn't know her from Adam. I didn't know that she was an alcoholic. I was taking a major risk in going there, hoping that it was a safe environment where it wasn't screaming. And with her talking over me, well, that's fine, as long as I can sit down and work on what I need to. But I can't work on it during the day because of the screaming. And she's sober during the day. And I can't do it at night because of her arguments with Rick. During the day, I need to make phone calls. And I can't make those phone calls because she's afraid that she'll be judged harshly. And then, because I speak about the situation, it must mean that I'm judging her harshly. No, I'm speaking about the situation that I was in. But this image of perfection is so important. Like with the Klang family. Rebecca Klang, that's the older sister, molested her younger sister. That's Rachel. And her dad, Rodney, used to hit her. But that's fine. It's somehow magically okay. Now, Rodney was pretending like he was going to help me, but he didn't. He just wanted to say pretty words. Now, Rachel and her mother, Dee Dee. There were two situations after Virginia and before Natalie died, where it was positive for me. One of them was when Chelsea Worsing and I, Chelsea Worsing is the one who I asked to go meet Miss Natalie with me. It needed to be one-on-one, and Chelsea would, of course, not be sitting with us and interrupting. But Chelsea wasn't able to make it. But the positive thing is, before that happened, me and Chelsea went to a street dance in Boulder, Colorado, and there were a lot of people there, and the chances of me running into one of those people who was being an asshole with a big crowd like that, this is a bunch of people who are autistic having this street dance on the Pearl Street Mall. Most of these people who are meth heads and drug addicts, they're going to be off to the side. They're going to be away from this. And me and Chelsea had a lot of fun. And then there was when Dee Dee Klang and Rachel Klang came to see me when I was staying at Ken and Leah's house. They came and took me to have a hamburger. And that was a positive experience. Now, Miss Peaches, there was a lot of stuff at her house that was positive, but it wasn't the positivity that I needed. Like their downtime, her and her boyfriend playing Diablo 3. That's their downtime. That's positivity for them. But it's not positivity for me. I'm basically sitting off in the corner watching them, hoping that they'll have the time or find the time. But they're winding down for the day. The same way that Amanda Ingelein wound down by watching Game of Thrones. The same way that Lana Ingelein wound down by listening to that Dutch feller. The same way that Miss Jerry winds down by texting one of her boyfriends for hours on end, or going and having sex, or going out to a bar. The same way that I wind down by using video games. But I'm not allowed to wind down by using video games. I'm not allowed unless it's approved by you. If I'm not into Game of Thrones, I have to get into Game of Thrones, or I'm a bad person, and I get treated like I'm a bad person, like I'm not trying. Or if I'm not into Wheel of Fortune, like at my dad's house. Or if I'm not into the Earthquake dude, like Lana Ingelein is. Or if I'm not into death shows, like at Sally Treon's or at Shannon Alvarado's. I have to conform to what you want me to be, or you're not going to help me. Meanwhile, if I try to conform to what you want me to be and what you want me to do, you're still not going to help me. You're still not going to keep your end of the bargain. I needed someone to take a look at the evidence. Now with Shannon, getting her to take a look at the evidence was damn near impossible. It's always about other people's lives. People say you just need to mind your own business. Sean, and that's the thing, is that this is my business. These are situations that I've been in. I'm in that situation. That makes it my business. That is the environment that I'm in. And when I'm being overwhelmed by the environment, yes, I'm going to speak out about it. When I'm not allowed to have an opinion, I'm not allowed to present facts, but other people's opinions can be used to prevent me from showing facts, then we have a major issue here. When I was finally able to get Amanda Jonas to take the time for me to go make a report, or claim that she was going to, Miss Peaches couldn't go in because of her family. She had her youngest son with her. And as a result, as Amanda Jonas said in that phone call between her and I, she didn't record it. It needed to be recorded so that they can't entrap. Now, my dad tried claiming that I was trying to entrap him. No, I wasn't. I didn't edit that at all. That was the phone call from beginning to end. Now, there's a pause button on here. If someone's saying a phone number, 308-8... See, I can pause it. There's a little pause button. But y'all notice that my head moves. It's not in exactly the same position as it was when I pressed the pause button. And that's only when people are telling me emails and phone numbers. And I can't remember those anyway, so I have them text them to me. That's where texting is important. The stuff that you need to remember. But also, texting prevents you from hearing the vocal connotation. And if somebody doesn't type everything perfect, or if it re-edits and posts something else, then you must have made a mistake and you're a bad person for it. Now, when I try to type the word fucking, F-U-C-K-I-N-G, my phone types F-U-C-K-I-T and then space N-G. That's not what I'm trying to type, but that's what it comes out as anyway. If someone's going to help me, they need to stop talking over me, over their opinions of the situation, and find out the situation. And I will explain all of it. Their questions are all over the timeline. And I will get to that point that they're asking about, but they have to allow me to speak to get to that point. They have to not go off on a rambling spree because they're drunk. And these are all dynamics that I have to deal with.